The Titanic is one of the world's greatest mysteries. On the 15th of April 1912, the Titanic set off. The 882-foot ship was holding 2,228 passengers and crew, but just 4 days into its first voyage, it hit an iceberg and sank to the bottom of the sea. This happened all the way back in 1912, but 108 years later, the Titanic is still at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Today we're going to find out why this is the case, and also how you can visit the Titanic before it disappears for good in a few decades. I'm Charlie, and today we're going to look at why can't the Titanic be recovered from the bottom of the ocean. But before we dive into it, why not subscribe and press the notification bell too. So the RMS Titanic set off from Southampton, UK to New York, USA. But at 2 AM the ship smashed into a massive iceberg in the North Atlantic Ocean. The ship then proceeded to sink 12,600 feet to the bottom of the ocean, and to this day it's never been fully salvaged. It was bizarre that the Titanic actually sank. The ship's designer Thomas Andrews even said the ship was unsinkable, and at the time the ship sank, there was 2,200 passengers and crew. There was a total of 1,300 passengers and 900 crew members. But on that fateful night, a gigantic iceberg hit the hull of the RMS Titanic. This caused 5 major holes in the ship. These compartments were related to the storage on board and also the mechanisms of the ship. There were no actual passenger areas stuck, but as these 5 holes filled with water, half of the boat turned over. Then the whole front of the boat was pretty much underwater, with the back half sticking up in the air vertically. Then, due to the Titanic's length, the ship broke in half, and then the 2 halves both sank to the bottom of the sea. 1,500 people lost their lives. Some did not escape the ship and were dragged down to the bottom of the ocean, while others who did escape were frozen in the ice-cold ocean. After all, the temperature would have been about -4 degrees Celsius, or 28 degrees Fahrenheit. However, 700 people, mainly women and children who were able to leave first, were saved. However, there are no living survivors of the Titanic, as the last one, named Melvina Dean, passed away in 2009. But why has this amazing artifact from history never been recovered? Well, first off, it sank very deep, about 2 miles down to the bottom of the ocean. That's about 10 Empire State Buildings on top of each other. There's also the difficulty of the ship not being one piece, it's actually snapped in 2. And it's a mystery as to why these 2 halves are so far away from each other. The 2 halves of the ship are about 600 meters away from each other, but this doesn't mean people haven't tried to recover the Titanic. In 1985, one man named Robert Dwayne Ballard set out to find the Titanic. Prior to this date, no one had ever seen the ship since it sank. After 11 submarine dives taking around 1 year, they finally found the wreckage of the Titanic. So it actually took 74 years after the Titanic sank just to find it again. But after what Dr. Ballard saw in the submarine, he said, "I'm confident the Titanic will never be raised." He said for various reasons, it would be impossible to pull the Titanic up from the bottom of the ocean. For one, all of the rust on the ship would cause it to be very delicate and crumble if it was pulled up. A year after Dr. Ballard discovered the Titanic, some American investors went down again. They used a nautical submarine and divers and recovered 1,800 objects from the ship. But some people were not pleased about this, as they kind of took what wasn't theirs. They simply took some of the things the ship was carrying, like expensive treasures, and not any parts of the actual ship. And in 1996, they did actually try and raise a part of the ship itself. They attempted to raise part of a first-class cabin on sea deck. There were only 4 portholes on this thing, and it was a very small part of the ship, but nonetheless, it weighed 20 tons and was very difficult. What they did was put balloons underneath this piece of the ship. They then used a tank of diesel to pump the balloons full. Then over 6 days, they were able to use this to pull the area of the ship up. They also used a French submarine with mechanical arms to help. And they also recruited NASA astronaut Buzz Aldrin to help out. That's how complicated this operation was. You need a real-life rocket scientist. However, at a great cost, they did succeed. But if you think we'll recover any more of the ship, then you're mistaken. The reason why is because in a few decades, the Titanic may cease to exist. Recently, scientists have found a new form of bacteria which is eating away at the ship. That's right, a never-before-seen bacteria is destroying the Titanic. Eventually it will eat away at the ship and it will be lost in the ocean forever. But how can you see the Titanic before it disappears? Well, in 2019, a company known as OceanGate actually did an expedition of the Titanic. People paid $105,000 each to go down there, and inside a submarine with strong lights, they were able to check out the Titanic up close. Another firm known as the Bluefish also offers tours to the Titanic. Their tour is actually cheaper, coming in at $60,000. So if you want to see this old boat before it disappears, better start saving. So there we go, that's why the Titanic can't be recovered from the bottom of the ocean. At least not in full. And honestly, it's pretty sad that soon the Titanic will be no more thanks to this new bacteria. Thanks a lot, bacteria. But now it's time to make your voice heard. Vote in the poll in the top right corner. If you had all the money in the world, would you want to go and visit the Titanic underwater? If you want some more amazing videos, check out my second channel. But as always, thanks for watching. Check out some more videos on screen right now. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to Top 10s.